GM.
Good morning. How are you? Thank you so much, Brandon, for joining us. I'm just trying to do all the things, logistic things here
Of
behind
course.
the scenes. So
I get
we're
it.
so grateful to have you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing this space as well. And with me, my co-host here is Paul. What's up, Paul? How you doing?
Hey, Paul.
Hey. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties there. Good morning. Hey, Brendan, what's happening, man?
Not much. How are you?
Nice to, good. Nice to connect. I'm looking forward to today. Been a big fan for a while and, yeah, I'm really stoked to hear
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too. This is great.
about it all. Yeah, this is going to be fun. Annie, how are you today, my friend?
Holding it steady, my friend, holding it steady.
All right. That's all we can ask for, right?
All good. All is well. Thank you.
Steady as she goes.
That's right. I'm grateful to hear more about Brandon. Really excited about his work. He's an amazing photographer, and here is two photographers that I really admire. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. Brendan, thank you so much for saying yes. Here at Light Art, we love to share work of artists and highlight and spotlight them and share what they're doing. And also, I'm looking forward to our conversation. Even if we don't stick to the script, we love and enjoy these time together. So thank you for the time, Brendan, of letting us get deeper into your work.
Of course, I'm really happy to be here. This is cool.
Awesome, Paul. You wanna catch up?
Awesome. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. There's so much happening over here. Things are falling over and miss hitting buttons. So I'm here now. I'm fully present and have all my faculties. So uh, Brendan, my favorite question, which I get to ask every time I'm hosting, as Annie graciously allows me to, is to ask our guests to just give us your origin story. Give us your first 15 minutes of the movie of Brendan North and tell us how how you came to be who you are and with yourself, the person, the art, and as much as you want to share. It's the floor is yours, sir.
Sure. Okay. Wow, myself, the origin, and the art. Normally, I'm just asked about how it started with the photography. But yeah, I grew up in Massachusetts, um, small town outside of Boston. Very, it's a beach town, so I grew up on the ocean, and I think that sort of influenced a little bit of my style later on. I tend to lean towards, very summer style photos, a lot of poolside stuff, a lot of beach stuff. Um, but I went to school at George Washington University in DC. My life was on a very different track. I thought I was going to go into politics. I was interning on Capitol Hill. I did the whole, DC sort of track, I guess. And I was studying international affairs. But during my senior year, I picked up a camera a couple months before graduating, and it changed my life forever. This was 2016, and I think it was sort of a prime moment for Instagram in a way that people really started making a living on that app during 2016, and it became much more of a public, almost slightly more accepted way to go about making a living. Obviously had plenty of arguments with my parents about not using my degree in any way, shape, or form. But eventually, they let me go, and I moved to Los Angeles, no connections whatsoever. Uh, and I drove for Lyft. That was my way of making money for rent. I did that for about a year while scheduling photo shoots in between driving. So I would wake up around 5 in the morning, drive people to work, essentially, which was a good time to make like bonuses and everything. Lyft probably functioned differently back then than it does now. But I would then schedule a photo shoot with somebody that I found on Instagram later in the afternoon, and I built up a photo portfolio that way, with, local models that were willing to shoot with somebody who had barely touched a camera. And by the end of that first year, I was, making enough money from paid photo shoots to stop driving for Lyft. That was, a blessing in itself. And it gave me even more time to focus on the photography. And I started reaching out to bigger and bigger names on social media. This was sort of my strategy. Because I was young and I was honestly aspiring to be an influencer as much as a photographer back then. It felt like a, good way to go about it in that era. And it blew up my account faster than I could have ever imagined. People with millions of followers started asking me to shoot their photos. And, by middle of 2017, I had my first 100,000 followers on Instagram. And the next person that hired me full time was actually Logan Paul, pretty big YouTuber. And I was his personal photographer for about 9 months. And that took me from about 100,000 followers to 900,000 followers on Instagram. Yeah, it was pretty absurd and quite an experience. And then by 2018, I had sort of been burned out on the YouTube and social media influencer world. And I decided that I wanted to be an artist. And I quit that job, went out on my own again, and started making photos that I felt more connected to. Everything I had shot up until then was almost always about who was in the photo. That was the important thing. And it had nothing to do with what I was trying to say as a photographer. So the big shift was me trying to deliver a message in these photos, something that I actually believed in, a photo that I could be proud of, and even more importantly, a photo that I felt would resonate with people enough to support me by buying it, by putting it up on their walls. I wanted to make art that felt like art, that felt like something that you could proudly hang on your wall in your home. And I think that sort of notion has guided me since mid 2018, 2019 is when I really kind of dove into the concept photography side of it. And yeah, since then, I've been doing that. I've been making that kind of photo.
That's awesome. I love that. I use awesome in, the broadest and most inclusive sense of the word. In that, like, I have that same mentality. I feel like, well, we all kind of get into that trap of who, we're on Instagram and there's a level of performance that's required for there to be a certain amount of success. And it was never something that I really, wanted to do or appreciated. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm also older than most of the people on Instagram, probably. And so I always saw it as, just a living gallery of the evolution of my work, and then trying to find clients through, as the size grew, being able to translate that into work. And the fact that you had this transition to, like, it became less important about who was in the picture, but what was in the picture. That, and just the way you said it was like, it makes sense. I'm the lowest common denominator type of guy, and I love the way you explained that. That was like just bare bones, and yeah, beautiful. That was great.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
was
So yeah, absolutely. I think it's that's so important, and it's evident in your work, the thoughtfulness and like the art and the playfulness and the commentary, social commentary, or whatever it is that's going on in your life. It's coming through in your art, and that is
yep,
like just the I got my car broken into,
right.
like, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to create art out of like what could have been just a really huge pain in the ass,
Yep.
um, and so yeah, no, that's awesome. Annie, you got something?
Man, I have so much to unpack because I think that as artists, we have to learn to start somewhere to make things happen. And you started doing your side hustle photography while you were driving and doing other things. And I think for most people, it's like, oh, this is not going so well, so let me just give up. And instead, you made it your passion. And I think I'm passionate about that because I've done that. And I think that that's there's so many nuggets to unpack there because you have to fight through the uncomfortable to get your dreams, to fight for your dreams. And so I just admire so much that you just said in the introduction of who is Brandon North, and so I think, man, so much, but I do want to like move us along into, you went from like being this sub, what is it, part-time photographer and then now full-time photographer based on the opportunities that you've opened doors. That's all in the IRL, if you will. How do you jump into the NFT space from going shooting and building your portfolio so other people can see in Instagram and Web 2, if you will, to then jump into a Web 3 community, which is a little different, sort of operates kind of the same, but now promoting yourself in a different level, not just for the Instagrammers or the clouds, but for a different purpose.
For sure. Yeah. I look back at 2021, almost every day I think about that year. It really truly changed so many artists' lives, including my own in a very big way. But the beginning of that, um, I like to think that I was incredibly well positioned, for that moment. I had the massive social media following already, so I think I was seen as pretty legit. As I entered the space, people saw my art, they went over to my Instagram, they said, "Oh my God, he has so many followers." And I think that was definitely an advantage to me in that moment. But I also had a dedicated portfolio of photos by this time that were meant to be art pieces. They weren't just, documentary style photos or, landscape photos or whatever, other genres of photo that you can think of. The way I had approached photography for the last 2 years leading up to 2021, ended up giving me, more of a unique body of work, I think, at that moment that was sort of ready to just dump into the NFT space and say, look at what I've made over the last few years. So that again is just another sort of advantage that I felt like pushed my work further in the space than it would have otherwise if I had definitely just kept on going with the social media photography and photos of celebrities and influencers and, stuff that nobody really want to buy, at all. If I had entered with that kind of work, I don't think I would have done so well. Um, but yeah, January 2021, I started paying attention, to the movement, and I don't really, I think just, actually, you know what? I do remember the exact moment I got served a TikTok video from a girl named Angela, um, really, talented sort of video maker, influencer, um, and I ended up actually shooting with her. She also does a little bit of modeling, but during that photo shoot because I connected her from this video we shot, and she told me about NFTs, and I was like, wow, okay, maybe I should take a look into this. And started paying attention in January, got on Clubhouse, was spending, 15, 16 hours a day on Clubhouse talking to people for the next 3 months. I basically dropped everything else in my life to pursue this. And I applied to a number of different marketplaces. This was like the Nifty Gateway moment as well, where if you dropped on Nifty Gateway, you made $1 million. So I was trying to get Nifty Gateway to do a drop with me and got zero response. And then I applied to Super Rare, and they actually accepted me despite not really accepting any photographers at the moment. And I became, to this day, I still believe that I was the second photographer to release a photo on Super Rare right after Ruben Wu beat me by a couple days by minting his Genesis 1 of 1 on there. But I think he had already dropped something somewhere else, possibly Nifty Gateway. So he was early in terms of photography. But yeah, April 8th, 2021 was my Genesis piece on Super Rare. Sold that honestly pretty quickly. And yeah, from there it went ballistic for about a year.
That's, yeah, I love this. I love to hear the stories about how people got into it. I think 2020 was such a rough year for artists and in major cities. I lived just outside of New York City, so we were on lockdown forever, and then like figuring out what are we gonna do, and my awareness started to become of the Web3 space from JN Silva and Dave Krugman talking about it, like mid to late 2020, and me kind of being like, well, I don't know. It looks like there's a lot of like 3D and digital art, and I don't know if photography is going to have a place, and like just kept watching it, and then like you said, the Clubhouse days of, talking and learning and, building community and then supporting each other, is how I wound up, in this space, and was with, Abraham and, many others, of our friends, that are still here, still doing it. Photography, it's still alive. I don't know why that question always gets asked, but it's still alive. I feel like we never go anywhere, but people are always asking,
Yep.
Is photography still a thing? Yeah. Were you going to say something, Brendan? I'm sorry. I
Oh,
didn't
no,
want to
not
cut
at
you
all.
off.
I was sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good. So speaking of community and how that helped shape what I'm doing, what we've been doing in this space, how does that come into who you are? I know that I see some of my friends who are in LA, on shoots with you and doing things. So I know that you're involved in the community IRL, and, just a part of the creative community, which is always incredible and wonderful to see. But how does that come into what you do? Does it influence you in your own creativity? Do you do collaborative work, or do you feel like this is what I'm doing? And then if you are spending more time in community, or if you found yourself spending more time in community, how is that impacting how you're creating, or even just your time?
For sure. No, I think like the sort of natural state of my style of work is collaborative. Even just down to the very base of me working with a model, that in itself is a collaboration of sorts. and I very rarely have photos that don't have people in it. It's kind of just the style that I gravitate towards, is always working with somebody. And on these bigger production shoots, I will always try to go bigger and bigger. And that obviously requires more and more hands on set to help me out to make these bigger visions a reality. So in more recent times, I've been working with assistants and videographers to help me document these larger shoots, to get behind the scenes videos, which play such an important part in sort of marketing my work and showing my work to the world in a way that people actually understand how much effort has gone into making these images, how much organization, how much time, and that has been a huge boost. So yeah, I think community, being collaborative, you can't do these kinds of things on your own. At the end of the day, it's very, very important to me. And in the Web3 space, I think I've found something that I've been looking for a long time. Or at least I felt like I had back at the beginning of those Instagram days. It was sort of a natural, more concentrated social media community, online, support system. Instagram used to have that, but then Instagram got so big and the algorithm got so convoluted that people became distant, and we stopped seeing the same people that we used to always see and communicate with. And finding that again in the NFT space, this sort of concentrated artist to artist support system has been really, really amazing. Getting feedback from people, being able to support each other, and actually directly, influence the way that we make money together. So that has been really, really special. And even down to the fact that I get to support artists by collecting their work. I have, hundreds of NFTs at this point. I never saw myself becoming an NFT or an art collector in general. But when I, see my friends dropping work that I actually love, over the last 3 years, I've collected quite a lot of it. And that has always, felt really, really special. I get to display it I got a big token frame in my living room. So I'm always sharing photos of things displayed on that, which feels really good. But yeah, having this community, has been something super, super special.
We couldn't agree more. I think community is the best way to thrive in anything that you do, is build yourself around people that are going to support you, but then lift you up, and then you do the same. But I love hearing how you're also supporting others while you're in the process of this journey here at Web3. And so, I salute you for that. Being part of the community also means to give back, and so, you do that, and that's honorable. So thank you for sharing that. I love seeing how you've turned your NFT portraits and the NFT work that you've done, the photography, into prints as well. We're going to walk into, what are you working on and what have you done? I've posted some here on top if people want to look at your latest work, your latest edition with Transient Lab, and you can jump into that. But I do want to put a little emphasis here on the printing side of things that you continue to do. I know you were doing that before the NFT, but then you've incorporated it into what you are currently doing now. Can you tell us a little bit more your passion behind printing some of your work, or giving them access to be printable?
Yeah, absolutely. So printing, in terms of being an artist photographer, printing was my first love. When I started creating those images, that were more on the conceptual side, I started to print them pretty much immediately. My first sort of moment of that was actually a collaboration with a company called Darkroom. Some friends here in LA started it, and now, thousands of photographers use their service to print their work sort of on demand, and they set up shops with it. It's a great website, really cool service. But for my end, that did feel a little bit impersonal. I wanted to be the one, going in, seeing those prints, putting my hands on them, signing them, editioning them, and then sending them out to my collectors. So I decided to, close that shop and start printing here in Los Angeles, at a lab. And yeah, I absolutely love the process. I've experimented with, all the papers that you can imagine, all the print types, light jet, inkjet, whatever it might be, chemical prints. And yeah, it's an art form in itself. And, I've really enjoyed it. And then obviously entering the NFT space, there's always been an argument. I don't really think it's much of an argument whether or not you can print the photos that you sell as NFTs. I consider them different fields. My NFTs are one of one digital assets, and my prints are, editioned in their own way. And even at the end of the day, my prints are very, very low editions. Typically, I'll do 3 sizes. The largest size will have 3 editions. The middle size will have 7 editions. And then the smallest size will have 15 editions. So total, I'm selling 25 editions of a photo. And, if you're buying that large size, the 40 by 60 size, there's only 3 of those that will ever be printed. So I keep it very, very exclusive. And yeah, I really enjoy that manner of selling work. So, and the joy I get from seeing a framed piece go up in somebody's home or place of business or hotel, whatever it might be, is really unparalleled, because I know that photo is going to be admired over and over and over again. On the daily, people are going to be exposed to that piece of work and, almost reminded of something that I did. So that's a cool feeling as well.
So,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that's so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there is something special about, because so much of what we do is in the digital realm. There's something so special about seeing your work printed, no matter, like you said, on, whatever medium, whatever type of paper, whatever type of ink, whatever it is, when it comes out. I still have that, like, oh my gosh, it worked, like reaction to the fact that I'm seeing, like, and like, I'm like, oh my God, it's as sharp as it is on the screen, and it translates, and it, like, the light worked, and there's no banding, and like all the things that you're concerned about, like that. Even like, I feel like making an image into a photo is one of the greatest hurdles in, like, tackling that imposter syndrome that we have sometimes, when we tell ourselves, like, oh, I don't know if I should do this, or I don't know, like, who am I to make a, 40 by 60 print? And then, like, it comes out and you're like, holy cow, I could do this. Like, so I really love that. There's something special. Like, it's like the final step, right? Like, you've planted the seed, you've watered it, it's come up, there's leaves, and all of a sudden, like, out of nowhere, there's a flower, and you're like, wow, like, I did it. This is so cool.
I think every photographer, whether they're ready or not, I think they should print their work and just see how that feels and see how it changes the way they view their photography. Because once you start printing things, something changes chemically in your brain, and you think, oh, what would make a really cool, like, version of this? It's something changes when you see it printed, especially if you print big. I recommend going as big as your local lab will let you. Even if it's not sold, spend a little bit of money, see how it feels to print something really fucking big, and see how that changes your photography and your perspective on what you're trying to capture.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that the moment when you realize, or like you said, like even if you're not ready to print your work, because it could be also used as a learning device
Absolutely.
of like,
Yes.
okay, well, like, so now I need to understand, we're photographers, right? Our job is to capture light, and you're creating a scene while capturing, light, and creating that, and to see, like, in living color, like, here's the proof, like, it worked, the concept worked. So Annie, I'm gonna just veer off topic real quick. I don't know how quick it's gonna be, but I wanted to talk about, because there's clearly a lot of thought and process in what you do, Brendan. I wanted to just hear about, like, the process of your conceptualization of projects, pieces, whether it's a one of one or whatever. You can get as deep as you want. I know that you're someone who comes up with an idea and then makes it happen. So that is something that I feel like is a valuable um, tool to, even just, or just a subject to hear someone who's successful in what they do, and that there's a process. So, like, can be an overarching type of thing, a blueprint of, like, from idea to posting or to printing. What does that look like for you?
Oh yeah, of course. So I've, I feel like a mad scientist in a couple, different ways. The number one way is I am obsessive about the way I write down ideas. Um, because you never know when that next, like, hit is gonna come. I call them lightning strikes, because you're never really expecting it. And then you're like, holy shit, that's a photo. Something happens on the street. That's a photo. You pass a billboard. You pass something happening in your car. Just driving around LA gives me a ton of inspiration. I see things, just daily life. And I'm like, there's a photo inside that moment that I just experienced. Um, or something, I draw inspiration from all facets of life. Like you said, I had my car broken into. That's a photo. I watched a movie last night. There's a photo that I want to create because of something that one of the characters said in my head, I'm like, that's a photo. And the way I go about not forgetting that is writing it down immediately. I'll stop everything I'm doing. I'll pull over on the side of the road and I'll write it down. My notes in my phone are absurd. I started numbering the ideas recently, because I would just scratch them down in sort of a very unorganized manner. But then I decided, you know what? I want to put numbers next to each of these so I know how many I have that are kind of just going unfinished. And I think I'm at, like, somewhere in the 200s in terms of concepts that I haven't shot that I would like to, which is sort of ridiculous, but that's, like, sort of a total. And then what I do around my apartment, I have 3 notebooks, one at my desk, one at my bedside, and one at my coffee table in my living room. And I have a whiteboard in my shower. So I think of photo ideas in my shower all the time. Or I even think of, like, captions or, things that I want to say, lines to poetry, whatever it might be. And I obsessively write these things down. And then I'll transfer the things from the notebooks into my phone as more of, like, a concerted, organized record, I guess, of the thoughts. And yeah, that's definitely, like, step one, is just making sure you don't forget those great ideas you have. Cause I used to convince myself, oh, that's a great idea, I'll remember it. And then I'll sit down later that day and I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, of course I wasn't gonna remember that. Like, what, I don't remember at all what the concept was. So I got really obsessive with writing things down. And on the execution side, it goes into a ton of organization. At this point, I've been doing this for enough years that I have a pretty solid network of models to lean on. A lot of the people in my photos are, you know, repeats. You'll see some familiar faces. Not that I ever show faces. I'm always putting a mask of some sort on people, whether it be, a VR headset, a Playboy bunny mask, a balaclava, for a robbery style photo, all of the above, but I do have this network of people that are willing to be in my work, that like my photos enough to want to work with me. Sometimes it can be hard. I'll pitch a concept and they'll be like, I don't want to be a part of that one. That one's not for me. And, I have to go, sort of down the line and continue asking more and more people. And sometimes it can take months to bring an idea from concept to actual execution. Like months of actual effort of asking people, trying to organize a day, especially these big shoots where I have 3 models involved, a videographer, an assistant. The one I just did in Malibu, the Malibu's Most Wanted shoot. I think I thought of that photo in February, couldn't execute it until the first week of August, because I was trying to find the right people to help me make it real. And I had to figure out how to rent a police motorcycle, and I had to find the perfect car to be sort of the getaway car, which I finally did find because I was looking for this specific Chevy Malibu, because it's called Malibu's Most Wanted, and that little silver tag on the back of the car that says Malibu in the most beautiful cursive. I needed that in the photo. So, those details can take a lot of time to sort of organize and put together. And, eventually that photo finally came to life. I found the 2 models that were willing to be in it. I found a videographer that was free on the same day as everybody else. I found a way to rent a police motorcycle. I found a guy that owned a 64 Chevy Malibu, and that took me months to do. And those big shoots, they take a lot of time, but they're worth it every single time I do it. So yeah, a lot of organization, into execution.
Lots of thoughtful ideas, I'm sure, as you orchestrating one idea and you think, oh, this would work best for this other idea. I just think like,
Definitely. Oh,
I'm sure.
absolutely.
And you're perfecting the last shoot, the process of last shoot, because you're as you gain experience, you start learning what worked, what doesn't work, and you start tailoring. And so I'm sure it gets easier, slightly easier as the time goes by, as you plan shoot by shoot.
I wish it got easier. People are hard to work with sometimes. It's people are people. It's hard to organize. Especially when I don't do these shoots, I spend a decent amount of money to bring these to life, but I try to not spend all of my money on these photos. So I do try to do them on a budget. And when you're working on a budget, you can't pay people as much, and that can make things harder. I've found that when I do pay people, the photo shoots all of a sudden become so much easier. But that's not exactly sustainable, especially when a lot of these photos, they won't make me a dime ever. Or it'll take years for somebody to buy a single print and I'll get half of what I put into the photo shoot back. So yeah, it takes time.
For the love of art.
Exactly.
For the love of art. You're doing fantastic. I have no doubt that in the near future, you will start seeing the return on the investment, and the seed that you are sowing now would give fruit in due time and in due season. I wholeheartedly believe that, because it's like a boomerang. What you give comes back to you, and you're definitely putting in the time, and you're dedicating your own investment, your own money to do these things. And so, I honor you for that. It's so cool. But it looks like you're balancing a lot between on your shoots, right? Between the different things you have to orchestrate to come up with this shoot. And of course, dealing with people is not always the easiest. But how do you take that balance of also spending time with yourself, your family, your IRL world, right? There's a difference, right? As you work and then you play and then Web3 and then your family. Like, how do you strike a balance with all the different aspects of life?
That's a good question, and it's probably something I could improve upon. Um, I do try to find a balance. When I think of balance, I actually go back to 2021 and how I had zero balance. Um, I think a lot of us sort of dedicated our entire lives to that moment. We all felt it was imperative, to spend every waking second locked into Twitter, to make sure we were taking advantage of a very special moment. And I had no balance. It was very unhealthy. I was having panic attacks every week, because I wasn't sleeping and I was, nervous about not spending enough time on Twitter, because I felt like if I logged off, I'd miss an opportunity. And honestly, at that moment, that was kind of true. Um, you were missing things on a split second notice in that time. But it was unhealthy for sure. And I had no balance, and my body made me pay for it. I got COVID at the end of 2021, probably at my most unhealthy point in my life, and that COVID punished me in a really big way, by taking advantage of a very what I think was a very weak body, very impaired body at the moment. And I ended up getting long-term symptoms from that COVID that lasted almost a year after the fact. I was pretty public about my struggle with long COVID, through 2022, and how I was unable to create or work or think straight or expend any sort of energy whatsoever, for almost a year. And yeah, I never want to put myself through that again. So I've given myself, a lot more time to find that balance that we're speaking of. You know, focusing on my health, focusing on my mental health. And that includes time spent with friends and family. And, yeah, I feel a lot more whole at this moment, because I've put focus back into those areas of my life. And, yeah, I live in California. My family lives in Massachusetts, so I don't see them as frequently as I'd like. But I'm FaceTiming my mom every day, and yeah, I try to go back as frequently as possible. I have a good network of friends in LA, a lot of artists that I get to see and hang out with, and yeah, just trying to be better at the balance.
Yeah, I remember that time when you were making it public and you did a project, you released a project right after the
Yeah.
editions, and it was I think it was crucial time too as we all started learning the hard truth of needing balance, and you did it so well. You disappeared for a little bit, but then you took time to come back and you came back strong, and you took time to think through your additions and how you happen to have that. I'm honored to have one of those pieces in my collection. Very honored to hold a piece while you were also recovering, but needing funds to recover and get back to art. And so you did it in such a fantastic way. And I don't know if you want to tell a little bit about that story, that edition.
Yeah, absolutely. So that one's called The Signs of the Times. Um, and I think it was sort of a reflection on how I was feeling, mentally at the time. There's two characters in the photo. One has a sign that says the end is near, and the other is holding a sign that says the beginning is near. And they're sort of, standing there in a protest sort of style, or, you'll see a doomsdayer on the corner of a street in New York City holding a sign that says the end is near, right? Uh, so I took that, you know, gave it the opposite and made sort of this, um, yin and yang style photo, that reflected my mental state. And it's something that you could, if you didn't know my story, you could look at that photo and see a review of the state of the world. You can expand it as much as you want. The beginning is near, the end is near. What do you believe? And, at that moment, when I was sick, there were a lot of times where I felt I was going to be stuck like that for the rest of my life. The end is near was ringing in my head. And when I started to get a little bit better, a little bit of glimmer of light, the beginning is near started to take over, and I was able to latch myself onto that belief and move forward in a more positive, mental state. And yeah, I'm proud of that work. I thought that edition went really well. And like you said, Annie, it was a really important time for me to try to tell that story of what I had been through an art piece, and that work served that purpose for me.
That's really, yeah, to be honest with you, I had forgotten about that whole saga that you had to go through. And, I collected one of those, editions as well. And I loved, I loved, not, I think I knew, obviously I think we all knew like what was going on. So that kind of like, yeah, is this the beginning of a new normal, or is this the end of what I thought was normal? And, so often these moments that we see as one or the other are often, both in one, which is kind of, hard to understand when you're in the moment. So like that you were able to see the importance of that moment and then have the vulnerability and the willingness to share with your community is, yeah, that was just really, really wonderful, piece.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, man. Absolutely. It's hard to do. It's hard to do because there's like are you an authentic person? Are you, like we are living in a world where there's like shows being put on all the time. And, the fact that it's like, well, I'm an artist and this is what I'm going through at the time, and it's going to change me, which is going to change my art, or I'm going to use this in my art. That's, it's something that I know I strive to do, and to have the allowance and to have the grace of the community to follow you along on that journey. That's big. That's big. So yeah. So speaking of community, with Light Art and Myanmar, we try to find ways to uplift artists. We try to, as we do here, the Artist Spotlight. We have, activities on our Discord. We're moving into a new, era where we're going to be offering some things that are really cool coming up in the near future. We always like to ask our artists, is there something that you see that we can possibly be doing better, or we can attempt to do to help support more in this space?
Yeah, no, it's an important question. I think anybody that's putting time and effort into doing what you guys are doing, putting together sort of an apparatus to support artists, is so important. We need more groups like this, to sort of be the voice. So yeah, I guess, if I could say one thing, is just continue giving artists a voice, or a platform, as you guys do, because there are so many talented artists, especially in this space, that might not have the marketing means to get their work in front of the right people, or they weren't part of, the 2021 hysteria, and they weren't able to make a name at the beginning of this. They entered later and they haven't, found the right audience yet. So there's an importance in supporting people like that, that can come from a group like you guys. So yeah, I think that's really important. In terms of other things that you guys could do, I'm curious what you're working on, because it sounds like you might have some ideas already in ways to work on this, but I don't know, nothing else direct pops into my mind right away.
We're grateful for the time that you've given us to be able to spotlight you. And for those that are wondering um, how can I be a part of this Light Art Majamo Art Artist Spotlight? DM us. We're always looking for community team members that are doing something with their work, that are currently working and sharing and a part of our community. And so, Brandon, thank you for joining us and being a part of this artist spotlight and this conversation. None of this would not have been possible had it not been for the team that supports Light Art. And Mijamo Art, our founder, Mijamo Man, who you see here. We're very grateful to have a small but mighty team that continues to support artists. If you don't know, we do have a newsletter that we send out twice a month. And if you share your work through our Discord, which is where we highlight artists through our newsletter, we pick those artworks through our Discord on your share art. And so you have an opportunity to be on the newsletter is another way we support artists. And from there, we pick out some spotlights and highlights that we share on our Twitter. We're constantly looking for opportunities to bring new people to talk and hear about their work and share about what they're doing. So if there's any suggestions, please DM us. We're always open to hearing about it. Paul mentioned very briefly, we are working on some things that you want to be a part of, so stay tuned to what's to come. We're not sharing a lot of that yet, but Brandon, I know we're coming up to that hour. If you think you have time, we can do Q&A. If not, we can move on into our closing. I don't want to abuse your time.
No, that's it. I mean, if somebody has a question, I'm happy to stick around and chat.
So cool. Thank you. Well, you heard it here. If you have, if you want to say something to Brandon, give him his flowers, or if you have a question, if you're a photographer and you have questions, or you're just an admirer of his work and you want to comment on some of his stuff, please come up. We're here. Um, thank you for your time, for extending your time, Brandon, for us to do that. We're really grateful
Of
and thankful
course.
for those. Thank you, man. Paul, did you want to say something?
No, I just love hearing about the process, the thought process that goes into creativity, because it's so unique to each person, and how they come about. The end result is fascinating to me. The amount of planning, the amount of time spent conceptualizing. It's a difficult thing to turn an idea into an actual product. So definitely, I'm thankful just to have some insights into that, because I feel like the more we hear about it, the more we can assimilate some parts of that into what we're doing, because we know that there's a successful roadmap out there. It may not be everything for us and how we create, but getting a perspective and getting insights into your process, I think just allows us to be able to move forward in our own process. And look who's up here, Mr. Brunch, Fidel. Hello, welcome, sir. Mr. Black and White.
Did you just call me
Photography.
Mr.
There he is.
Brunch?
Mr. Brunch.
It's great.
I'm hungry now. I just saw your name pop up and I wanted a croissant.
It's great to see where my career has taken me. I used to be, Vogue and Teen Italia and all that stuff, photographer. Now I'm Mr. Brunch. I'll take it. I'll take it. We adapt.
No
No,
offense. No offense, man.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Please. The floor is yours,
Thanks,
sir.
Paul. I actually, I know a lot about Brendan. I've been following him, since the Instagram days, since his earlier YouTube stuff kind of on the low because, I followed a lot of people, 5, 6, 7 years ago through, photo sharing mediums as I got into that world myself, going from photography into the actual social media aspect of sharing the photography. So, on the low, I've been following him and a few others since those days. I just want to come up and say it's an honor, man, to be in the same space as you. I remember having 500 followers and sharing shit and just being, how are these guys, amassing this following and, the publicity stuff and
Yeah.
the popularity, who you work for. I did a lot of red carpets and things in the early 2000s in New York. And so I know how it is to have people follow the photographer because they're always hanging around the celebrity, But my main point was just to say, sticking with it, man. That's the thing that I've found the hardest in this space and in being a photographer, the last 25 years. It's not being cool or making money or, sharing with others. It's just sticking around, which is, I think, the number one hardest thing to do. So to see you go from, starting off followers, starting off social media, starting off not knowing exactly, how to represent yourself, like you were mentioning earlier about which focus you wanted to have, whether it was working for people or your own pieces that you wanted to display, showing your own art. Doing it, man, for 10 plus years, 15 plus years is what I'm up here to applaud you for, because I know that shit is hard and I've been doing it myself, the same as you. And it's every single day is a grind, and every new technology and every new social media that comes out and every new person you get to work for, it's a new, road ahead on that big ass career path. So I just came up to throw flowers at your face for sticking with what you do and not letting any of the sales or the fame or the popularity kind of stray you from your path, which is creating photography, creating photos, even when it's of your car getting broken into, which I got to tell you, that's ballsy, man. Like I would definitely have not had the guff to do that because I would have been so angry. But, yeah, that's all, man. Just kudos. And, I think we met once or
Thank you, man.
twice, I
Yeah,
told
in New
you in
York.
person. Yeah, exactly. But, I just wanted to come up here and share for everyone else, the kind of integrity it takes to keep doing what you're doing. So kudos for that.
Thank you, Fidel. I really appreciate that. No, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely a grind. You choose not to have a 9 to 5 and you get to work 24/7 instead. So that's what we sign up for, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's the way I want to live my life. I get to create photos for a living, and I think I'm, lucky just because of that.
So true. So true. Fidel, thank you for coming up,
Yeah, I appreciate that,
and
Fidel.
giving
Thank
such
you.
thoughtful flowers.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really sweet. And it was really, it's nice to hear. I think this is something that we need to hear more as a community, like how, even just kind of like, I know what it's like, and like, kudos to you, because it's not an easy life, but it is one that we chose, right? But, it's not necessarily easy, when we're trying to do it, on a high level for a long period of time. And you're absolutely right. So, Fidel, thank you for, bringing that to light, because that's important and it doesn't get said often enough,
Yeah, man,
in my
it's a
opinion.
pleasure. And, it's quite a shame, to be honest, if I could just rant for a few seconds, because 10, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't that way, where we had to conflict with each other and how do you say, compete against each other. Now, with the eyes of the world being on social media, with the constant visibility that we have, we are kind of thrust into this world. And I mean, we, not only as humanity, but we also more specifically as photographers, as artists, as painters, as musicians, we're starting to go more against ourselves now. And I have the good blessing of being able to teach what I've known in these years. So I teach photography here at a college in Verona, where I'm based, and I've been doing it for a number of years. And it's interesting to see the way that this, let's say, open-eyed visibility strays the path of the youth, and I don't mean that as a gospel. I just mean it inherently changes the way that they want to work, because now there's so much more. What will people think? What will other photographers think? What will TikTok and YouTube and X and people who might want to give me money, will it be better or worse for my image? There's so much of that. But I remember, late 80s, early 90s. I'm gonna take you guys back a little bit. As we learned, we worked together. If a photographer could do something I couldn't do, I asked and they shared. And maybe it wasn't 10 out of 10 times, but 90% of the time, if I had a question, people answered. If you had knowledge to bestow upon someone else, you just did that automatically, because it was an honor to see someone feel as if you knew more than them, and to have them approach you and say, look, man, how you get the f-stop on that, man? What's the lighting that you're using? What's the rigging? I don't know how to do that. But now we kind of are guarded with that, and it's a shame to see that. So for me to come up and, show praise to someone, I'm still of that old school mentality. I wanna be better than Brendan. I wanna be better than, Kath Simard. I wanna be better than them. I wanna make more money than them. I wanna know more than they know. I wanna have all of the experiences in my career that I see all these other photographers have now. But my instinct as an older human being, let's say, is to know how they do that, is to learn from what they do, to go on their pages and see what their posts are, and to have that experience of knowing them as people, not only because I want something from them, but because I respect what it is they've done. There's millions of photographers on this planet, and this is just photography. I can't even go into the rest of the art mediums, but there's millions of photographers, and we've all learned and shared and had to know something at some point. We're not perfect. We don't come out of the womb, with all the knowledge of how a camera works. But it's so much harder now to be open mind, or to be, open to the public and in front of people and ask for things. It's harder to go up to people now and shake a hand and say, hey, it's nice to meet you. I love the stuff that I saw that you did. It makes it difficult, this social media thing, because people don't want to look bad. We don't want to look like we don't have the answer to every single question. So I share because I want others to know that shit's okay. You don't know everything, and you're not making as much money as everyone, and you're not, you don't have as many cameras, you're not traveling as much, and that's okay, because we can't all be the best, but we can all learn from the people who are the best. So I encourage people to, you don't necessarily have to spill your guts and talk about how bad you are at something if you don't know how to do it, but go ahead and ask those questions, get that information, share with other people who are in your artistic, circuit, because we all, in the end of the day, we learn from each other, and we shouldn't be afraid to do that, or to show praise when we feel someone's done good at a medium that we've chosen as our own career path. That's all.
Mic drop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's, the truest form of community right there. It's not only like understanding that we're together in what we're doing in our creativity, which is new, right? But it's always been a community, and there always has been sharing. And like you said, the unfortunate thing is that there's been like this kind of, I don't know who to ask and how to do this. How do I price this? How do I shoot this? Like, there's so many things that coming into, your creativity and wanting to learn and grow and to foster that growth. We need people who are willing and able to share and teach. So another amazing point. Fidel, thank you for your wisdom and for how well and how just succinctly you put that. Super important for all of us. I think with that being said, I mean, no one else is coming up,
We have
and
Aaron.
I wouldn't want to follow Fidel. That's all I'm saying.
Poor Aaron, who's right here.
Does that mean I don't get to follow Fidel then? Are we?
Oh no, I didn't see you came up. Wow, talk about your all-time backfires.
That's
Jeez
all right. No, but
Louise.
it's true though. Actually, Fidel with the just dropping knowledge bombs though. It's a great perspective, and it's so true. But I'm so sorry. I'm in the car, but I definitely had to take the chance to jump up. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
All
Yep.
good, all good. Brendan, just huge fan. I'm sure you've seen me all over the timeline, just
Absolutely.
splashing all of my favorite shots. Like, and I'll say this like proudly, and I probably posted this. I may as well just copy paste this post because I say it so often. But like, two of my probably top pieces, not just photographs, but pieces in all of the space, come from Brendan. I might forget the names, but like Reverie, I think it is, and Still I'm
Yeah.
Here from the Painted Poetry series. Like those, they just, there's some pieces that when you see them, like they stay on your mind even when they're not in front of you, and those are like those types of pieces. But Brendan, I mean, I appreciate as a
You got the
photographer and as an
titles right.
artist. Okay, cool. No, I
Yeah,
mean, I just,
Reverie and Still I'm Here. Thank you, man.
I mean, they're so good, and but they're just representative of your body of work. For me personally, it's just my vibe. I love photography, especially, like just an amazing use of light and shadow, especially in your black and white work, your composition. But more than anything, just like the whimsical, kind of stylized, like staged, scenes that are set up that make your mind go in a lot of different directions. And it's like a short movie. You know what I mean? In a still image, and to be able to do that over and over again is just absolutely amazing. But I mean, that to me is, when I think of like art and an artist, like that's to me what an artist does. But anyway, so first off, just thank you for putting that work out there and letting us share in that. It's, I'm a fan for life, and I'll be following
Thank
along, and
you.
I'll be right click saving the shit out of that, because the people that own those pieces are never letting those go. So I'm just gonna have to, I don't know, have to figure out a way to, to appreciate and share on my own. But if you've got a second, though, I'd love to throw a question your way.
Yeah.
If you've been around for a while, like you said, the Instagram days. I've heard some interviews with you before where you've worked with God, who was it? Was it Logan
Yeah.
or Mr. Pete? I can't remember who it was. An influencer, and you did some videography work and things like that. But so as you think about the Web3 space, the NFT space, like how today do you navigate being a full-time photographer, an all-in photographer with with the Web3 space? In 21, you probably could have gone all in. You did go all in, right? And it
Yeah.
was probably okay. But today, for the photographers out there that are just trying to grind and make Web3 their only thing, it feels like that strategy may not work. It may not have a big chance of working. So what do you do? How do you round out, your life as a full-time photographer, balancing that Web3 and other?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it has changed a lot in the last 3 years. Also, I'd just like to say, if I could choose a way for people to view my work, it would be exactly how you just described it. Like if everybody could see my work the way you see my work, as as these mini movies, as these conceptual story pieces, that's how I want people to see it. So I really appreciate you saying that. So thank you. But yeah, the way of life for a photographer in Web3 is not the same as it was in 2021. I don't think there's really that much of a way to go all in right now, um, and make 100% of your living here. I wish it was. I would love for this to be 100% of my time again, but it doesn't work that way right now. It can't be. So I do have to, like you said, round it out with everything else. And for me, that comes from print sales. I'm lucky enough to be working with a gallery in Los Angeles right now that has had my work on display since February. So that's been really nice. We've had a number of shows. I've made a number of sales because of that space. So that, tops up a little bit. And then on top of that, I am still very much a working photographer. So I have my photo studio here, which I was able to open last year. It's 5 minutes from my apartment. So very, very convenient. And that is both a rental business. So I rent it out to other photographers and my personal studio. So I get to, do all of my personal shoots there as well. And that includes doing people's headshots or, personal photo shoots, brand shoots. I'm doing e-commerce, mostly for like women's fashion brands. Um, yeah, I still have to very much be a working photographer. I don't share that work at all. I don't think I'll ever post an e-com photo on my Instagram. I think my following would be like, what the fuck am I looking at? Am I getting served like a women's fashion ad? But yeah, I have to do all of it. At least right now. If Web3 becomes 100% of my time again, I'll be over the moon. I'll be overjoyed. But right now, reality is that I have to do all of the things.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate the perspective, and I think for those that are trying to, that don't have the history, they don't have the success that you've got at this point, I think it's great to hear that. And also, like, props to the Light Art Mayamo team, because, like Brandon said, like, that's not going to necessarily make it on his reels and whatnot. But I think that people need to hear that. And so, like, this space is, like, perfect for those types of conversations where you can actually understand what it's like to be a full-time artist in this space and this time. So thank you guys. Thank you, Brendan. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Paul,
you.
Annie, you guys are awesome. Love you guys.
We love you right back, friend. Thank you so much for your love and appreciation, but also for your passion towards Brandon, our artist spotlight. For those that don't know, Brandon has a new series that he came out with. It's the Malibu series that we have here up. There's an edition that he minted with Transient, which I'm sure is kind of like the same tech that Paul talked about on his edition, where
It
they
is.
have multiple. Great. You want to talk about it so we can sell your piece? Come on.
Oh, sure. No, I made this photo series, Malibu's Most Wanted. There is one of one that sold on Super Rare, which I'm very grateful for. It got 2 bids, which I was, more than happy with. It was awesome to sell that piece. That was the one medium format film shot from the shoot, and it was sort of the photo that encompassed everything that I wanted out of the shoot. It was the idea that came to me first, and then from there I sort of extrapolated the whole story of these 2 blonde bandits that are, Malibu's most wanted bank robbers, these criminals that get pulled over on the side of the Pacific Coast Highway and have a shootout with super soakers with the motorcycle cop, and they have a fight over the duffel bag full of money that they've stolen from the bank. And so it's this whole, sort of crime story all encapsulated into these photos. So the one of one sold, and then I decided to make 4 of my favorite other photos from the shoot into a one token edition. And my, tip off to that being possible was seeing Paul's edition in the same 7160 token from Transient. Thought it was the coolest way to sell sort of a cohesive body of work as a single token edition. I didn't want to sell all 4 of these. I mean, I wanted to sell all 4 of these, but the idea of making them all individual NFTs seemed burdensome, especially at this time in the market. I thought it was a really cool way to sort of give my collectors 4 pieces with one purchase. They get to decide which photo they can display. And the contract allows me to add more photos in the future. Because I do have, more images from this shoot that I think are, very collectible parts of the story. So I'd love to add photos as we go along to that contract and give those people that buy the edition sort of a surprise reward when they're not expecting it. Like, hey, just want to let you know, if you own the Malibu's Most Wanted edition, you've just been given another photo in case you wanted to display something different. You get this one now. But yeah, it's a really cool dynamic edition, and I'm very proud of that body of work. Like I said, it took me a long time to pull that one off, and a lot of effort, organization, etc. went into the model recruiting, the behind the scenes, the finding of the Chevy Malibu, the finding of the location took me a long time. I was driving up and down Malibu, up and down the PCH, trying to find the right spot to pull the cars off, not be bothered by the police, even though a police helicopter kept on buzzing our chute. Because we literally had a cop car, a guy dressed as a cop, and girls pulled over on the side of the street with no permit. So luckily, the guy who rented us the police motorcycle was an ex-cop, so he kept on throwing like 4 fingers up in the air at the helicopter, which apparently code 4 is no further assistance needed. So they never sent a patrol car, which would have been a problem. So yeah, we got, lucky with that. But again, the whole story is told by these photos, and I'm really proud of that shoot. And you can go buy the edition on Transient. It's pinned to my profile.
It sure is. Let me just say how proud I am of you for not giving up and just continuing the hustle and bustle. And a big shout out to you for daring to do stuff that might scare a lot of people. This movie set that you've created would have scared a lot of people. Just the thought of seeing or hearing, man, we're going to get flagged by the cops. We don't have a permit, yada, yada. That stops a lot of people. But you push through and you keep building these sets. And so I'm very proud of your work. Thank you for sharing the story too. It's amazing.
Thank you, Annie. I really appreciate you inviting me to do this. And I do think that when I eventually get arrested for one of my art pieces, I think it'll just be part of the lore, part of my story. So we'll see.
Please tell me that you'll always have a videographer with you just in case.
Oh, absolutely. I need the footage of me being put in the back of the cop car if and when it happens.
Listen, you're gonna be famous just for that one shot. Listen, you take risk, and this is what art is about too. Art sometimes require risk, and you're doing it. You're doing all the things. And so I just want to say how proud I am of you and your work, and for your inspiration for us to continue the hustle and bustle. That's something that Fidel brought up. The things we have to do. Aaron too brought it up. Like the things we have to do that are outside of what you see on a day to day, to do what we're passionate about, to have the freedom to follow our hearts and our dreams. And so very proud of you, my friend, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Annie. That really means a lot. I appreciate you. And thank you again for inviting me to do this. This was a really great conversation.
It's such an honor. Paul, any last words?
I mean, just everything that you said. This is a great space. I'm so happy that you came and shared with us and the people who are here, getting insights into what it takes to do what we do is invaluable. So thank you for your time, for your talent, for your expertise, and for your willingness to share that with everybody. We're better for it. This was an incredible hour, and happy to get to know you on a deeper level the way we were today. So thanks, man.
Yeah, no, I was really happy to see you join and be a part of this. I was really stoked to get to talk to you as well, Paul.
So awesome.
So awesome. You're awesome.
You're awesome.
Everyone's awesome. All right. We've taken up everybody's time enough.
We have.
Annie?
If you guys do not follow Brandon, do yourself a favor and stay tuned for more of his movie sets, like Aaron pointed out. Please go follow his work. If you have the means and you could, go collect one of his editions. You won't regret it. They're only $29. And 7 already have been collected. I'm hopeful that maybe in the near future, I would be one of those added to this Malibu Most Wanted collection because I absolutely love it. I want to say thank you for your time, Brendan. If you have any last words you want to share with us.
I'm all out of words. This was great. Thank you again. This was an honor. It was a lot of fun.
So amazing. So great to hear you and hear your story. And with that said, friends, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you a very great Tuesday. And we hope to see you next week for some more fun conversation with other artists, with other spotlights, and more information to come on the work that we're doing behind the scenes. And so we're so grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining us in this time. And with that said, please have a great Tuesday. Can't tell anymore.